Welcome to the Kelly Healing Project, where we have real conversations about healing, growth, and stepping into your power. I'm Kelly, and I'm so glad you're here. So, today I'm joined by an incredible guest, Tim Shurr. Tim is a mindset expert, psychologist, speaker, author, and the creator of the One Belief Away method. So, over the past 3 decades, he has facilitated more than 16,000 unconscious belief reprogramming sessions, helping everyone from Fortune 500 executives to high performers break free from anxiety, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, and what he calls achiever syndrome. Tim's work centers around a powerful idea that many of the struggles we experience today aren't caused by a lack of discipline, motivation, or willpower. Instead, they're often driven by unconscious beliefs that were formed years ago and continue running underneath the surface. He's been endorsed by some of the biggest names in personal development, including Bob Proctor and Les Brown. And his work has been featured on major television networks and TEDx stages. So today we're talking about why smart, capable people still feel stuck, how unconscious beliefs shape our reality, and what achiever syndrome really is, and how changing a single belief can completely transform the way we experience our lives. So, Tim, welcome to the Kelly Healing Project. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I appreciate that. I will, just for the record, I'm not a psychologist, although people think that a lot of times just because I've been doing the psychology work for almost 40 years. But yeah, I've been working really hard at helping people to experience a sense of success with peace instead of pressure, and removing the parking brakes that are stuck in our brain that we don't even know are there sometimes so that you can experience more joy and happiness and prosperity. And so I'm really excited that to be on this program with you, and I'm looking forward to our conversation because I know it's going to help so many people.
Right. So before we really dive deep into your work, I'd really love to start with your story. So really, what
Mhm.
led you down into the path of mindset transformation and the unconscious belief work? And really, were there any personal experiences that shaped the work that you're doing today?
Oh, yes. I mean, my whole life has been shaped by this. It's an ongoing process. My first client was me. I had a lot of anxiety growing up, and I just was trying to figure out how to feel safe, how to achieve goals, how to feel good about myself, how to get rid of that need to chase approval. I was a people pleaser and always wanting people to like me because if you liked me, maybe then I could like myself. I love myself, but I didn't really like me because I had a lot of fear and self-doubt.
Mm.
And so I went to school for psychology. And I remember one time there was a counselor that said, Tim, you have generalized anxiety disorder. And I'm like, well, how do I get generalized confidence in order? And he's like, well, you got to do the work. And so, I spent years working on my mindset, which is what we do, right? I listened to personal development programs, which were very impactful. And I did I did counseling and I went to retreats and I journaled and had vision boards and tried yoga and did affirmations. But I found that I was still struggling with the same kind of worries and fears. They would just come up, and I'm like, "How is this possible? I have this great mindset." And I find that a lot of people that I work with have really amazing mindsets, but we still have the bad habits. We still have the imposter syndrome. We still get burned out.
Mm.
We still struggle in our marriages, right? Or with our kids or with our health. And so, that's when I started realizing there has to be something else going on. And that's when I started realizing that, there's this mental operating system that we have underneath the mindset, and it's driving the way that we think. It's driving the thoughts that we're having. It's keeping those bad habits in play. And so we got to go deeper than mindset because that's where the breakthroughs are going to happen.
Right. Okay, that makes so much sense. So, for somebody hearing your work for the first time, what exactly is an unconscious belief? Is that the same thing as a subconscious belief, something that they don't know is really there?
Yes, yes. So Unconscious and subconscious are really interchangeable. People
Okay.
use them in mostly to they think it's the same thing, right? But an
Mhm.
unconscious belief means that you are not aware of it, right? It is unconscious. It's stored in the library of your brain. So you have your two parts of your mind. You got your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. Your conscious mind is the part that you're using right now to listen to up to me. Your listeners are listening to us and deciding whether they like this or they don't, if it makes sense or if it doesn't, if
Right.
they agree with it or not, right? So it's our logical, analytical part of us. It's where our willpower comes from, where we try to force ourselves to show up and make things happen. And so it's the reasoning part of our mind. And then we have the unconscious mind. And that's the part of us that doesn't care if it's reasonable or not. It's the part of
Mhm.
us that knows that we should have an apple instead of a Diet Coke and a candy bar, but it goes and it grabs for that Diet Coke and candy bar anyway, right? And that's because of the programming. So our unconscious mind, it runs our autonomic functions. It keeps your heart beating 100,000 times a day, keeps your blood circulating without you having to think about it. And it also
Mhm.
is the part of us that runs our beliefs and helps us make decisions based on the values that we have, based on our life experiences, based on the beliefs that we have. And beliefs are rules for how we think life's supposed to be, right? So rules for how we view ourselves, how we view others, what kind of world we live in. And most of these beliefs, think of it kind of like brain software. If your brain is a computer, then this is the software. So your beliefs are mostly created by the time we're 18 years old. And most of our core beliefs are probably created by the time we're 12 years old. And those beliefs guide us
Mhm.
for the whole rest of our life unless we upgrade them. And excuse me, and that's
Mhm.
what my work has been for the last 31 years, trying to figure out how do you upgrade those beliefs. And because that's what's driving. So think of it this way, Kelly. When we are focusing on improving the way that we think, or we're trying to change our life, we focus on our conscious thoughts. And that's what pop psychology does. That's what therapy does in many cases, not always, but in a lot of cases. And that's like cutting the top off of a weed. So, and then we try to, if that's not working, then, we try to use pharmaceuticals. We try to use natural herbs. We use food, smoking, alcohol, different ways to distract ourselves. But that's like throwing dirt on top of weeds. So, with
Mhm.
my approach, what we do is we pull the weed out at the root and we replace it with a flower, right? So we're upgrading the life rules in our mind. We're upgrading those unconscious beliefs because that is what creates a significant breakthrough in people's lives.
Wow. Okay, that's perfect because I'm actually trying to do that. I journal a lot and I kind of
Mhm,
question, I try to almost look at my own patterns of behavior as an
mhm,
outside perspective, if
mhm.
that makes sense, because you become
Sure.
so attached to your own I guess, the way that you think, the way that you believe, the way that you view
Mhm,
the world. And if you
mhm,
kind of look at it, at least for me, with an outside perspective and just journal, like I'll just write it down. I don't think this is normal. And I'll just kind of write it down and I'll be like, no, I don't think this is normal. And then I'll really sit and focus on it. So a lot of times when you're doing that, it's so uncomfortable because you're so used to how life is and you've become accustomed to doing things a certain way. And when you've experienced trauma, you have certain
mhm,
patterns that kept you safe at one point, but
mhm,
you don't
mhm.
necessarily need those anymore.
Yeah,
So,
they're not, a lot of times they're not keeping you safe anymore. So the walls that we
mhm.
put up to protect us have now made us a prisoner. Right? Wayne
Oh
Dyer
boy.
said it best. Yeah, Wayne Breyer said it. Wayne Dyer said it best. He said that trauma is like getting bit by a poisonous snake. The bite hurts. When you get bit, it hurts really bad. But that's not what kills you. It's the venom that's left inside. And our job is to get the venom out. But what we tend to do is protect the venom because we think it's keeping us safe. I don't want to ever get bit again. So we put up
Right.
that anger, that resentment, that mistrust of people, or self-pity, where we remain the victim instead of
Mhm.
becoming a victor, and so our job is to get that poison out. And you're right, a lot of times the poison's been with us for so long that we think it's part of us and it's not. So instead of asking, I like the idea, is this normal, right, or not? You could also
Yeah.
ask, is this useful? Is it
Oh,
useful or unuseful?
oh, that's a good one. That's a really good
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
yeah.
Because really,
Because
what is normal, right?
yeah, that's
I mean, yep.
subjective, right? It is it useful? And if you're like, yeah, it's useful, it's protecting me. Is protecting you allowing you to grow though?
Mm.
Right? Lao Tzu once said that you have to get away from the base of the tree and you got to go out on a limb because that's where the fruit is. And so
Oh,
we can't grow at the base of the tree. We have to go out, and that might feel scary, but that's where you discover how strong you actually are or how you can
okay.
grow. Right.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, yeah, so it's about asking it not positive or negative or normal or not normal. It's, is this useful? Is it helping me
Mm,
grow? Is it moving me towards the way that I would like to feel? The
mm.
experiences I like
Right.
to have, the person that I like to become, or is it holding me back and keeping me from that?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. Okay, those are great questions. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
what inspired you to really start to develop the one belief away method?
So that just happened from going through experiences and working with people and recognizing that, one of the tools that I use, I got my degrees in psychology, but one of the tools that I used was hypnotherapy, right? Because it was a
Oh.
fast way of getting to your unconscious mind.
Mm,
I didn't use it for all like the doing the stage shows and trying to get people under and all that stuff because I didn't feel like that mattered, right? And it's a
mm,
very natural process. It just Hollywood has made it look like something scary or people can control you or stage hypnosis shows, they'll use it, stage
mm,
hypnotists use it for entertainment, but even that, it's a show. You're not controlling anybody, you're not making people do things. It's just meant to look that way, just like a magic
mm.
trick. The rabbit was in the hat the whole
Right.
time. It didn't magically just appear, but it was meant to look that way. As part of the fun. It's part of the entertainment.
Mhm.
So, but with hypnosis, we go in and out of these natural brainwave states regularly. Every time you fall asleep, you go into a hypnosis, really, and it's
Mm,
just a relaxed, calm brainwave state. And so I found that using that tool was a way of being able to find those beliefs right away by going to the experiences where those beliefs were first formed. And so
oh,
I found that if I would just give people affirmations and give them, so if someone comes to me and they want to lose weight and I just hypnotize them and tell them to eat more salad, that might work for a couple of weeks. Or for some people, they might lose some weight. But most people, that would wear off or they would just gain the weight back. And I'm like, well, what's the deeper issue here? And so, for example, Kathleen came to me and she was near 300 pounds. And she said, can you hypnotize me to just be a happy fat person? And then she started crying, and I knew that's not what she
mm,
wanted, but she did not believe that it was possible for her to lose weight because she tried everything. She was in her 50s. She had tried every diet there was. Even when she lost weight, she just gained it back. And so what I did was I realized that she wanted to be a happy person in a right sized body for her. That's what she ultimately wanted. So what we did was we figured out, just what was the feeling that's holding her back. And she always felt this feeling of unworthiness. So we just used the hypnosis and helped her go back to the first time she ever felt that way. And she just had this rough relationship with her dad. She felt like her dad never really loved her. And so if dad can't love me, then there must be something wrong with me. I'm not worthy
mm,
of love. And if I'm not worthy of being loved, then I'm not worthy of taking care of myself. And so she had this belief in her mind that she wasn't worthy of being cared for. So every time she tried to care for herself by losing weight, her brain would say, well, that doesn't match and sabotage it. And then she would go right back. She thought she's addicted to sugar, but it's not. She had a belief conflict inside. So instead of telling her to eat more fruits and vegetables, which wouldn't have worked,
right.
that's like throwing dirt on top of the weeds. What
Mm,
we did was I helped her to upgrade that belief. I helped her feel like she was more than enough, that she was worthy, that she gets to decide. See, our brains make up these beliefs without our permission and without us even knowing that it's happening. And
mm,
so, and we're doing it when we're little, when we're young. So we don't have the life experience. We don't have the wisdom that we gain as we get older. And so if we had those resources when we were younger,
mm,
maybe the situations wouldn't have felt so traumatic. But we don't have those resources. And so it's scary and awful. And it feels like,
mhm.
ugh. And so when we have that, it gets locked in. So we upgraded those beliefs. And then we created new associations. So every time she ate something healthy, every time she made a deposit into her health and happiness account, going for a walk, drinking water, being nice to herself, that was an act of self love. It had nothing to do with trying to lose weight anymore. We just changed the game, right? Every time she did something
Oh,
kind for herself, it was an act of self love. So she said, I'm just going to spend this next year loving myself.
mm,
And over time, that's exactly what she did. And 10 months later, she was down 144 pounds.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
That's
mean, she
awesome.
looked like a different, person. So more importantly, she felt like a different person. And that was like 12 years ago because I still keep in touch with her.
Wow.
And yeah. And so the weight stayed off because she upgraded her beliefs, which took the tiny pieces of her heart and allowed them to put them all back together again.
So, how long did it take you to, or how long did it take her to have that transformation? Is it like one session? Is it several sessions? Or does it depend on how severe maybe the belief is? Or,
So that's a great question, Kelly. I think that for a lot of people, that first session is incredibly transformational because it's the
mm,
core, deepest fear that we have, which for almost all of us is that we're not good
mm,
enough, right? And so we have that core fear that I'm not enough. And that's where the fear of failure, the fear of
mm,
rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear
mhm,
of success, right? What all the fears. Come from that basic fear that I'm not enough. And because I'm not enough, I won't be loved. So how do I get love and how do I keep myself safe? And that's what's kind of driving our, the way that we become. We become the people pleaser,
mm,
or we become the smart one, or we become the reliable one, or we become the caretaker, or we become the achiever, or we become the one who's always getting in trouble, right? Because at least negative
mm,
attention is some kind of attention. And so,
mm,
we develop these strategies. And so there's usually several beliefs that we have to upgrade. And whenever you get stuck, there's probably a belief there that needs to be upgraded, right? So you're always looking for that next belief. I encourage people to become belief hunters and wisdom collectors, right? And so if you are feeling stuck, your biggest breakthrough is hiding in the places that you don't want to go. And if you go there on purpose, you're going to find that belief that's been holding you back and you can upgrade it. You can create a breakthrough, you can create a miracle today, just by understanding what the real game is, that you're looking for those beliefs. And there's two questions you can ask yourself that you can help find those beliefs as well, right? So the first question is, what would I have to believe to think this way or feel this way or behave this way? And then you just
mm.
keep asking yourself that. What would I have to believe? What would I have to believe? And until you finally get down to that core belief, well, I'd have to believe that I'm more than enough, that I'm worthy of doing this, that I can accomplish anything I put my mind to, right? So, so that's what you ask. What would I have to believe? And then what would I rather believe instead? What do I want to believe instead? Because now as an adult, you get to choose because beliefs are just opinions. You have the right to whatever opinion you want. So you can ask yourself, what would I rather believe instead? And, uh, and then you start moving from that belief.
That's so true because a lot of people, I don't know, they think, well, this is the way that I've always been, or, that's the way that my family was, or, my parents
Hmm.
were. But just because that's
Hmm.
the way that it has been in the past doesn't mean that, you can't experience something completely different. And I feel
That's
like
right.
that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's like they put limitations, and some of that could be, even you said not being good enough. Maybe they
Hmm.
don't think that they're good enough to move
Hmm.
forward or to have that actual dream life. But really
Hmm.
anybody, I mean, everybody's good enough for that. Um,
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we were all kids once. Does that mean
right.
you have to still act childish?
Right. Very true.
Right? So, I mean, I have thousands of stories and experiences where people came to me with goals they felt were impossible, and then they
Mm.
accomplished them. So the word impossible, if you underline the first two letters, it says I'm possible.
Ah.
Instead of impossible, it becomes I'm possible, right? So I've seen people double their income. I've watched people lose half their body weight. I've watched people who went through horrific trauma
Mm.
um, come back from it and excel, and they turn their pain into peace. They took their mess and
Mm.
they turned it into their message, right? And so the
Wow.
human spirit is incredible. And, life is very much like a big school. And so you can become who you want to be. You can feel the way you want to feel, right? And if there's something that you want in your life, you have the ability to create it or something better than you had expected.
Right, exactly. So, one thing that you talk about often is nervous system regulation. So, how
Mhm.
do unconscious beliefs and the nervous system work together?
Yeah. So that's great. If you have, so I always said that my anxiety was like a fire alarm that was constantly going off inside of me, even though there was no fire, right?
Right.
Something would get triggered or activated, and suddenly I would start feeling scared. I would start feeling nervous. But I would have to have beliefs that drove that. Like some people, when they think of, well, you don't know what's going to happen in the future, and it could get worse than it is now. And so they're afraid to do anything because,
Mhm.
they're afraid of what could happen. The what if monster. What if this? What if that? So you would have to have a belief inside that you're not good enough to handle it, that something bad could happen and you're not going to be able to manage it, right? And that life is unfair. Life is happening to you instead of happening for you. Because if you had a belief that whatever's coming next, you're going to be able to handle it, everything works out great in the end eventually, and
Mhm.
I'll be able to figure this out. That God's just going to keep giving me more lessons and miracles. Then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter what shows up, right? All that matters is how you show up. Doesn't matter what's going to happen to me. I'm focusing on what I'm going to bring to the situation, and I'm going to bring the glory. I used to be
Mhm.
scared of everything that was going to happen to me because I was always focusing on what bad things could happen. Right. And so
Right.
I had those beliefs that were driving the fight or flight response. So the beliefs
Mhm.
drive the dysregulation in our system. And we have to upgrade the beliefs first. We're always trying to we're always trying to breathe through it and tell ourselves we're going to be okay. And then our brain says, yeah, but it's not going to be okay. I can tell myself I'm a millionaire. And then I look at my wallet and there's $5 and I can't pay my mortgage. I'm lying to myself. Okay. But you can change all of that by upgrading the beliefs that you have first that would allow you to attract more money into your life. You take the words nowhere and now here, they're the same letters. It's just where
Mhm.
you space them. Nowhere and now here, it's
Oh,
the same letters. Right. And so it just depends on what you're looking at. If you're telling yourself that your opportunities are nowhere to be found, you won't see them even if they're right there in front of you because you got these
right.
blinders on. And if you tell yourself that opportunities around me all the time, you'll constantly see them because your brain is looking
Right.
for them. Your unconscious mind will find them because they're always
Right.
around.
Mhm.
Kind of like radio waves. Radio waves are surrounding all of us right now. You just need a tuner to tune in, and then all of a sudden you can play jazz, you can play country, you can play rock, you can play rap, you can play whatever you can play gospel, right? Right here, right now, if you have a tuner and you just tune into the frequency, because the frequencies are all around us right now. You can't see them, hear them, touch them, taste
Mhm.
them, but they're still here. Okay.
Yeah.
So your phone will tune into them if you put on the right station. Our brain is a tuner. So we can tune in to these opportunities that seem invisible, that seem nowhere, but we can tune into them. What keeps us from being able to do it is a lack of faith. It's not having the right beliefs. And so when
Right.
you upgrade your beliefs and you upgrade your faith, you start seeing miracles and opportunities around you all the time.
Right. I've noticed that with myself. The more that I've upgraded my belief system, it's like the more opportunities or things that I could find that support that. So it's like whatever you believe, the brain will find evidence to support that. Oh, you believe this way? Okay, let's find it. Like, because that's what it's looking for. I don't know. Yeah,
Beautiful. That's
yeah,
exactly right.
it's incredible. But so is self-sabotage actually protection in disguise? Your
Yes.
opinion. Okay, yep.
Part of it is protection and part
Mhm.
of it is limiting beliefs.
Right.
So
Okay.
sometimes we sabotage ourselves. Let's just say that someone has imposter syndrome, right? Which is all of a sudden I get an opportunity to talk to someone or do something, and then all of a sudden I feel like I'm not good enough. I'm intimidated, right? And so I get myself out of that situation so that I don't have to feel the rejection. So I don't have to feel like,
Right.
yeah, I really wasn't good enough. So I sabotage the situation and now I don't have to go there. So that's kind of like a form of self protection, even though is it useful? No. Is it helping you
Hmm.
grow? No.
Mm-mm.
Did you have an opportunity where you could have learned, grown, shined, and discovered that you were way more than you realized? But yes, I could have had that,
Right.
but you sabotage it. So that would not be a useful belief to have, right? That I'm not good enough or I won't measure up. This is
Right.
how you learn to by getting
Hmm.
yourself into those situations. So, uh, so I think it can be a form of self-protection, but again, how is it really protecting us by holding us back?
Right.
I think that we're so afraid of dying. What we should really be afraid of not fully living. Too
Hmm.
many of us are playing not to lose. And but even when you play that way, even if it feels like you're winning, or it looks like you're winning on paper, you will still feel like you're losing. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I have a lot of very successful, famous, wealthy clients, and they, on the outside, they look like they have it all, and on the inside, they're feeling crushed. They have the same
Right.
struggles and insecurities as anybody else, right? And sometimes more pressure because if they're a public figure or they have a lot of people relying on them and they can't show any weakness, right? So it becomes very difficult for them. And so what we have to do is we've got to play to win. Otherwise, playing not to lose creates what I call achiever syndrome. And achiever syndrome is where you feel like you can never take your foot off the gas. You always have to keep driving forward. And that's what our hustle culture teaches us.
Hmm.
And it's okay to hustle and work hard and get after what you want, but you also have to play smarter. And it's not just about driving forward and pushing yourself into the ground because that's not sustainable. Okay. So achievers will often feel like if I let my foot off the gas, everything's going to fall apart. Someone's going to blindside me. I'm going to miss out on the opportunity that's going to make all my dreams come true. And
Hmm.
so we just can't even relax on a vacation. And so that's driven by the beliefs of not being enough. And so we've got to switch that, upgrade our beliefs, play to win, learn how to regulate our nervous system in new ways. And when you do that, then life you can still excel. You're just going to do it with peace instead of pressure.
Okay, wow, that makes so much sense. So, okay, and that was my next question was talking about achiever syndrome. But so how can
Hmm.
somebody recognize it in themselves? So basically they can't relax or they feel like they
Yeah.
can't take a break or a vacation.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to
Okay.
know, right?
Okay.
If you're sitting in a swimming pool and you can't float, you have to start doing calisthenics, and exercising. If you are on vacation and you can't put your phone down, if you are
Right.
supposed to be with the family and you've got your laptop on your lap, right? If you are constantly telling yourself there's not enough time in the day, if I used to tell myself all the time, I'm running out. I'm running out.
Mm,
I'm running out of money. I'm running out of time. I'm running out of opportunities. I'm running out of chances. Right.
right.
And then one day, God just dropped this idea into my head. You're not running out, you're running up. Right. I'm running
Oh,
up.
okay. Yeah.
I'm, okay. I'm running up. I got unlimited opportunities. I got unlimited money. I got unlimited time to do the
Yeah.
right thing. I've got this moment right here and now where I can choose how I want to feel, right? I
Hmm.
can choose it. And we don't realize that. We keep thinking all this is happening to us. And yes, some bad things do happen to you. Pain is inevitable in life. Pain is difficult. Or, I mean, life is difficult, right? But suffering is optional. And we have so much suffering that's self inflicted, self imposed, and we don't realize it, right? So we have a big bill that shows up, and it's like, how am I going to pay for that? Right. And then it's like, well, I'm going to have to figure it out. But that's not where we stop. What we do is then we get into our head and we start saying, I'm never going to have any money. I should be farther along than I am. Look at my neighbors. They've got more than me. I'm worthless. I'm a piece of crap. I'm never going to figure this out. I'm stupid. Right. And then we just start degrading ourselves.
Right.
That's how people make it worse. You don't have to do any of that. That is unnecessary suffering, and no one's making you do that. Now, you might, like you said, Kelly, maybe people are used to doing that. Maybe people
Hmm.
that's how it was, or that's what I grew up and that's what I'm used to. But don't use that as your measuring stick. You want to focus on where you could be and where you are and close that gap instead of where you've come
Right.
from. When you're driving in your car, you're spending most of the time looking out the out the windshield. You have your rear view mirror, but you don't drive
Yeah.
staring in your
Hmm.
rearview mirror. You look through the windshield because where you're headed is way more important than where you've been.
So true. That is so true. And also, I've become and anytime I have an obstacle or something happens, instead of looking at it like, oh no, and start to go in that endless loop of worrying, I just
Hmm.
start to be like, hey, I can't wait to see what's gonna happen, like what's gonna come from this, because this didn't come to break me, this came to build me. So what can we make from it?
Mm.
So just
Ooh,
kind of
that's good.
looking at it that way.
Yeah.
So, what's one belief you think every person should upgrade if they want more peace, confidence, or fulfillment?
I am enough. In fact, I'm more than enough.
Mm,
Right? God
okay.
loves me. I love me. End of story. Okay. I'm good. You're good. I'm awesome. You're awesome. Right. So
Right.
when you have that belief that I am more than enough,
Mhm.
then you can build from that's your foundation. If I'm enough, I'll figure out how to be safe. I'm like a cat. You throw me in the air, I'm going to land on my feet. Right.
Right.
Life can't break me. It's just going to build me. I love that, Kelly. That's really
Mhm.
good. Right. So those come from beliefs that whatever is going to show up, you're going to be able to handle it. And life is happening for me, not just to me. Okay. And so now you start to look at any situation, however it shows up, as an opportunity. Maybe it's an opportunity in disguise, right? If you get a flat tire, it's an opportunity to practice patience, right? If something doesn't work out, it's like, how do you know, right? Maybe this could end up being really good. So, good and bad are subjective because I've met a lot of people who will go through difficult situations and then afterwards they look back and they're like, well, if that wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. If I wouldn't have got fired from my job,
Mhm.
then I wouldn't have decided to get these tools and then apply for this job that I love with the people that I love, or this is where I met my spouse. Right. And so if I wouldn't have got fired, I wouldn't have left and none of this would have happened. I still would have been in that place complaining that I hate my job. So sometimes we're going through stuff and we're like, we don't understand the big picture. But if you have a general view that, I'm enough, I'm more than enough, and I'm going to be okay, and you build on that, and then you upgrade the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. Because that was something you reminded me as I watched you and you were talking to yourself, you were asking yourself different questions, and that's the second piece of this. Once you upgrade your beliefs, then you got to upgrade your questions. Okay, the quality
Mhm.
of your life is being determined by the quality of your unconscious beliefs and the questions you ask yourself all day long. So there's two types of questions. I call them lousy questions and power questions. So lousy questions are questions like, what's wrong with me? How come things never work out? What if this bad thing happens? What if that bad thing happens? Whose fault is this? Right? Why this? Why me? Why now? Okay. They take away our power and they
Mhm.
get us to focus on what we're afraid of. And where your attention goes, your energy flows. Your mind is like a GPS. When you want to go to the post office, do you tell your GPS, don't take me to the grocery store and don't take me to the movies? No, you say, take me to the post office, right?
Mhm.
Because that's where it's going to take you. If you say, don't take me to the grocery store, it's going to say, getting directions to the grocery
Grocery
store.
store.
When people are talking to themselves, they're focusing on what they don't want. They're saying, I don't want this bad thing to happen. I don't want to lose money. I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to feel more stressed. I don't want to eat those cookies. Right. And so they're always focusing on what they don't want, and that causes them to move towards it. So you have to use your mind like a GPS. You got to focus on what you do want so your mind can take you there. So that's where power questions come
Mhm.
in. Power questions are like, well, what's the outcome I do want? How do I want this to turn out? How do I want to feel right now? And what's one way I could feel that way that would leave me feeling proud of myself afterwards? Right? Or who can I lean on for support? What resources do I have? Like this podcast
Mhm.
with Kelly, which everybody is going to go give this 5 stars and share with their friends and subscribe so that more people can hear this so that the world can become a brighter place. Right?
Mhm.
So when you ask yourself power questions like that, how can I make this more fun? It will force your brain to give you those kinds of answers, right? So it's really important to pay attention to the kinds of questions that you're walking around asking yourself that you don't even know you're asking.
Great. Okay. So for someone who feels stuck in old patterns despite years of personal development work,
Yes.
what would you want them to know?
Yes, you have a belief conflict. There's one part of you that is stuck in the past and one part of you that is your inner wisdom, and they are battling right now. And most of the people that I work with have been in development for 20 years and done all this stuff. They walked on hot coals
Mhm.
and did the journaling and have done all kinds of personal work and therapy, but we still sometimes feel stuck. Part of that is just the growth journey because we're going to keep growing until we go on to the next adventure, and so we're going to have that growth journey. But if you want to break through really quick, you got to realize that you just have a belief conflict. There's some belief in there and you have not got to the root of it. You've just been cutting the weeds off no matter how much you've worked on it, and this one belief away method will get you to the root of it very quickly so you can finally have that breakthrough that you're looking for. And if you feel like you go through that experience and you're still stuck, it just means that there's another conflict in there, right? So one part of me wants to grow and have more success, but there's another part of me that's afraid that I'll lose family time or I'll lose love. I remember when I started becoming more successful, my family, was like, "Oh, you think you're special now? You think you're better than us? You've gone corporate." And then that made me feel bad, like, "Oh no." So then I started sabotaging that, and spending money in a dumb way and losing opportunities. So
Mhm.
that now I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And they're like, "Oh, you poor thing, come over here." Now I got love and I'm getting reinforced not to be successful. And nobody really knows they're doing this. They were just, insecure because of what was going on inside of them, right? They weren't trying to actively sabotage me. They were just, their own insecurities were coming up. We all are wounded children inside, and we're playing these games and we don't even know we're doing it, right? Because nobody's really taught us about unconscious beliefs. Most people have never heard the things that I'm talking about. So thank you for having this program and doing what you do. You're a light in this dark world, and so it's important that when you hear this and you understand this, you share it with others because most people are not hearing this.
Right. Okay. One thing, so you talked about how you self-sabotaged when your family, I guess they had their own belief systems, maybe that didn't line up with you. So,
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of people talk about projection. So is
Mhm.
really projection maybe other people's belief systems that they don't like basically do people realize that they're projecting, or is projecting more of people's belief systems, and they're just trying to maybe understand what you're doing based upon their beliefs? Hopefully you understand
Yes,
that question, but yeah.
I do. I do. Yeah, and it's a good question. So projection is it's like a psychological defense
Mhm.
mechanism. The idea is that you're projecting your feelings onto someone else. Okay, so someone who is cheating and having an affair will always accuse their partner of cheating, right? That's why they get jealous. Are you going out? Are you doing this again? Because maybe they've done that in the past and they're afraid you're going to do it to them. Not always, not every situation. If you have a jealous partner, it doesn't mean they're cheating on you, but sometimes that's what happens. We can project, right? And so, or sometimes people will be in a bad mood and you walk in the room and they're like, "What's your problem?" You're like, "Huh? Nothing." You got that face. Well, I have that face because I just walked in and you attacked me, you know, whatever. Okay. So sometimes people will take our feelings and will project it onto someone else, or you have people that will say, "You can trust me. You can trust me." Whenever somebody says, "Trust me, you can trust me," don't trust them. Right? Because they're projecting these insecurities onto you, onto other people. So that's what projection is. So when um if and of course that comes from your beliefs. We're all a set of beliefs, right? So we're all influencing. So everything that we do is coming from the beliefs that we have, even if we don't realize it. And so
Mhm.
definitely if you're projecting feelings, it's coming from your belief system. So, that's why you always got to try to own the situation and saying, what part of this am I playing? because a lot of times we want to blame it all on someone else. So let's say that you have an abusive spouse and they're always yelling at you, okay? And you're like, well, I am being yelled at, or I have to show up this way, or I could be in harm's way. Yes, but you have a role to play in this. You're staying, you're allowing that to happen,
Mhm.
right? For whatever reason, you're playing a role in this. Where there's always two parts. And if you really want to have a better life, you have to own your stuff. You can't just blame everybody else, and you got to stop beating up on yourself. You just got to own it. You got to take responsibility. And usually you need someone to help you to learn how to do that because we can't see our own blind spots. It's hard to find our own limiting beliefs. So you need help. You need encouragement from somebody else, to be able to figure out what's going on inside of you. But you got to decide that, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking ownership of my feelings and my beliefs. And then I'm going to start playing to win. And that's going to change my life, no matter
Right.
where
That's
you're at, no matter
right.
what's going on.
Right. That's perfect. So is it possible that you could share another client story where you changed one belief and it created a dramatic shift for this person?
Yes, there's so many.
Okay.
I tend to tell some of these stories that are just so crazy but they're true. It's just
Yeah.
so crazy. Like Joe came to me because he wanted to um, be better at sales, right?
Mm,
So this was before COVID, and he had come to me to because he was struggling to sell even a couple $100,000 in service and products for his national company. And so he came to me. Now I could have taught him a lot of sales tools and techniques and stuff, but I realized that it's our beliefs that are holding us back. It's like we're a high performance person, but we've got this parking brake set and it's creating this drag. And if I just release that parking brake, you can take off, right? And so that's what we did for Joe. When he was a kid, his dad was abusive. And so he decided as a kid that he was never going to become like his dad. So that created several beliefs. One of them being that he can't be aggressive, he can't be pushy, he can't come across too intense. And so that made him the nice guy, really nice guy, but a pushover, a people pleaser. People would take advantage of him. He would never ask for the sale because he didn't want to come across pushy. He wouldn't take a stand for his customer, right? And so even though he would have done a really good job, but he was just so afraid of being aggressive. So we had to heal that. We had to upgrade those beliefs, help him know that he's his own man, that he is worthy of love, that he is worthy of asking for whatever he wants, the difference between being aggressive and being assertive, right? And just
mhm,
trained him in that way. And I just started calling him the $1 million sales guy, right? And so what happened was then uh, COVID hit, and he had five big company accounts that he was just kind of servicing, and so everybody stopped spending money, and they all just were just kind of waiting. And so Joe decided, I'm going to go and help those people. And I'm going to be their trusted advisor. He became friends with them. He found financing plans for
mm,
them. He leaned in for them and just kept helping them believe and that they were going to be okay. He was teaching them some of the stuff that he had learned about himself through our program, and they just he became a part of their team. And after
mm.
COVID calmed down, a couple years later, they all had these budgets to set to spend, and they needed to catch up. And so they all five of them went to Joe, and in the next 2 years, he sold $54 million in products and
Wow.
services. He became the number one person in his sales team. We had to start calling him the multi-million-dollar sales professional. It completely changed his life. And it started with the belief that he is enough.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
Good for Joe.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But there's so many, I mean, whatever goal you have, I've helped people repair their marriages. I help people repair their self-esteem, every possible trauma you can
Mhm,
go through, losses, deaths, divorces, injuries.
mm,
One kid rolled into my office in a wheelchair. He was 18 years old. He was in Scotland, and he was on a wall at a castle, and he thought that you just jump off and there was, the 5 feet was going to be there, but it was dark, and he didn't know that there was like 40 feet missing. And so he just jumped off
oh, wow.
and fell and hit the ground and paralyzed himself. And
Oh, wow.
his parents bring him in, and he had a really great attitude, but he just wanted a little bit more, confidence. And
Yeah.
and then he got it. And he was amazing. He inspired me. right? And here's a kid that's going to be in that wheelchair, forever until, or at least until the technology and AI and everything gives him ability to walk again, which I bet in the next 10 years will probably happen.
Hmm.
So, yeah, we live in scary times, but also very exciting times. And it just, there's flowers and weeds in every garden. What are you going to water? With your
Oh,
attention. You're going to water the flowers, you're going to water the weeds, because whatever you water, you're going to get more of that.
yeah, exactly. Whatever you water is going to grow. So just be careful what you're watering.
Mm-hmm.
Like your mind is so powerful, and I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people just don't realize, yeah, that they put themselves almost in a prison at times, and they don't have to. They can free themselves. They don't
Yes,
have to stay there.
that's right. They were found guilty, but they didn't have all the evidence. And so you got to
Hmm.
have a new trial, and
Oh,
discover that you were innocent the whole time so that you can set yourself free, and the prison bars are the beliefs.
yeah.
And you have the keys in your pocket, you didn't even know it, right? Or you know it, but you didn't know you were allowed to free yourself. I didn't know I was allowed to love myself. I would chase the approval of others so that they could like me, so that I could like me. I didn't realize that I could
Hmm.
just go right to me and like me. I could go right to the
Yep.
source. When you chase something, it runs, right? So when you chase approval, when you chase success, when you chase money, when you chase happiness, it runs. What you have to do is attract it. You got to draw it to you, right? And you draw it to you by upgrading your beliefs, by realizing I'm already abundant, I'm already enough, I'm already, worthy of love and worthy of peace and worthy of success. And then all of a sudden, you start to notice other opportunities that show up and you start taking advantage of them. I could share one quick story about that if you'd
Oh,
like.
go ahead. Yeah, sure.
So I remember talking to Joe Vitale. He was in the movie The Secret, and all the like the king of law of attraction and stuff like
Mm.
that. And so I've had many conversations with Joe. And one time I asked Joe, I said, Joe, do you think some people are just luckier than others? Because it seemed like Joe was just having all this luck, even though he had a hard life. He had, he was homeless at one point. He's in his 70s now, and everybody loves him. But I was having a hard time. COVID knocked out a big part of my business. Like 90% of my business was just gone because I was
Oh.
working with clients, and my biggest client was a hospital. So they just stopped, what they were doing, and because of
Mhm.
COVID. And then nobody was coming into my private practice. And, so I was just sitting there, and I'm like, do you think some people are just luckier than others? And he said, well, Tim, I hesitate to answer this because there's so much victimhood in the question. And I'm like, oh no, Joe knows I'm acting like a victim. he said, he said, but let's just say that there are some lucky people out there in the world where luck just flows into their life. Why don't you just decide that you're one of them? And I'm like, is that allowed? Can I do that? Yeah. He's like, why not? And actually, he was like, yes, you can, And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet then. I'm a lucky person. Okay.
Oh.
Now, I told myself that. And most people would say, okay, I'm a lucky person. And then, you know, they get up and they stub their toe. They're like, oh, whatever, that's stupid. It's not going to work. Okay. But I didn't. I said, I'm a lucky person. And then I made that a new question. That became a power question for me. I'm in a situation. How would a lucky person handle this? If
Mm.
I'm lucky and things just work out for me, what would be a bold move that I could make? And I'm like, what would be cool is if I put together a summit, a legend summit, and brought all these cool people together, right? And then I could meet my heroes, and I could have this amazing experience, and I could share it with the world and help people with COVID, right? Who do I know? And then because of that, I asked Joe, hey, can you introduce me to this person? And can you introduce me to that person? And that's how I met all those people and brought them together for this legend summit. Bob Proctor and Les Brown and Brian Tracy and Ken Blanchard and Seth Godin, and I mean, you name it. Tommy Hopkins. I mean, if they were famous, I was connecting with them, and it was incredible. And it all happened because I decided not just that I was lucky, but I started taking action based on that idea. And because I kept taking those actions, my luck increased. I just kept getting more yeses and
Mm.
more opportunities. Do I still have problems? Yes. Do I still have pains? Yes. Do I still get frustrated? Yes. But I don't get stuck in it, and it doesn't last weeks and months. It might last a few minutes, and then I shift. I get my shift together, And then I'm back in the zone again, thinking, what else, can I feel lucky about today?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, what would a lucky person do? Or yeah, how would a lucky person respond? That's perfect.
Yeah.
So if listeners remember only one message from today's conversation, what would you want it to be?
That you truly are already more than enough. That whatever it is that you want is probably already inside of you. You might need to develop some skills or create some new contacts or move into new spaces so that you have new opportunities. But it's probably just some parking brakes that need to be released because what you need is all the love and talent and beauty is already within you. You were born that way. And you're just one belief away often from your next big breakthrough. So play to win, focus on you, and upgrade your questions. So when you do that, you're going to find yourself bringing the joy and bringing the glory.
Oh, wow. Great. So where can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
So I'm on social media. If you just look up timshurr.com or Tim Shurr. If you want some private coaching or you want to look at some of the programs and books, my books are on Amazon. One Belief Away, Get Out of Your Way, things like that. Or you can go to Indie Hypnosis. That's my old coaching site, but you can still contact me that way. So INDY like Indianapolis, indiehypnosis.com, and reach out. And I'm happy to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate your insight and just all the stories that you've shared. And we just thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I really enjoyed our time.
Thank you. So, thank you for listening to the Kelly Healing Project. Remember, healing is not about becoming someone new, it's about reconnecting with you, with who you truly are. Healing the past, empowering your future. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye bye.